Thanks for joining us, everyone. Welcome to the Essential Substance Abuse Skills webinar series. My name is Kate Trams, and today we have Lenny Hayes here to speak on counseling families, partners, and significant others. This training series is brought to you by the National American Indian and Alaska Native Addiction Technology Transfer Center. We are one of 4 national focus centers serving the ATTC network, which also includes 10 regional centers and a network coordinating office. To learn more, please visit our website. The series is designed to be a broad overview to assist in preparing for written alcohol and drug certification exams, to enhance existing knowledge, and to improve overall competence and treatment outcomes. Please be aware that this series is not meant to stand alone, and previous education and training is necessary in order to pass alcohol and drug certification exams. Our center is a NADAC certified educational provider, and CEUs are available on request for a $15 fee. A request form is available for the download in the Files pod in the webinar screen, and we will also be sending this form to you in a follow-up email. Immediately following today's webinar, you will be redirected to our GPRA evaluation. GPRA stands for the Government Performance and Results Act, and SAMHSA asks us to evaluate our events in order to comply with this act and provide improved performance assessment and accountability. The survey asks about your satisfaction with the event and will take less than 10 minutes to complete. We thank you in advance for helping us to improve our programs. You will be muted for the duration of this webinar, so if you have questions or comments, please use the Q&A or chat pods to share them with us. In the chat pod, your name will be viewable to anyone, so just be aware that that is not anonymous. In the Q&A pod, you can send a question anonymously that only we will see unless you would like to have it shared with everyone. So yeah, feel free to use either one, but the Q&A will be anonymous if you'd like that. Today's webinar is presented by Lenny Hayes. Lenny is the owner and operator of Tate Topa Consulting. He has extensive training in mental health issues that impact the Two-Spirit and LGBTQ community. His lived experience and training have made him a sought-after workshop presenter on Native American historical and intergenerational trauma and how it impacts the Native American community. He received his master's degree in alcohol and drug counseling licensure from the Adler Graduate School in Richfield, Minnesota. We're really pleased to have Lenny as a presenter for this series, and we're so excited that he keeps coming back to us because he has really great insight and experience to share in this area. So I am going to pull up his slides and pass things over to him at this time. Thanks so much, Lenny.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, I am Lenny Hayes. I am from the Sisseton, Wahpeton, Oyate of the northeast corner of South Dakota. I identify as Dakota. So we're going to be covering a lot of information today, so I'm not going to spend too much time on each slide, and I want to limit the questions until the end of the webinar. As I said, there is a lot of information that I'm going to be presenting today in regards to counseling families. So today's goals and objectives are to understand the characteristics and dynamics of families, couples, and significant others affected by substance use. Be familiar with and appropriately use models of diagnosis and intervention for families, couples, and significant others, including extended kinship or tribal family structures. Assist families, couples, and significant others to understand the interaction between family system and substance use behaviors. To assist families, couples, and significant others to adopt strategies and behaviors that sustain recovery and maintain healthy relationships. So we're going to begin with concepts and foundations. So key reasons to use family therapy. I don't know if I mentioned, but my specialty is marriage family therapy. I do work with couples, I do work with families, and I also do individual therapy. I am currently in private practice, specifically working with Two-Spirit Native LGBTQ people. My experience has been that I worked for several tribes and organizations here in Minnesota. So I've always worked within the Native community. I've never worked outside of the Native community, so I know a lot about working with families, understanding families, engaging families. It can be really difficult at times working within this population because there's so much history of historical and intergenerational trauma, but I have a lot of faith and hope that our community is healing and will continue to heal. So here's the key reasons to use family therapy. Build upon family strengths and reduce the impact of chemical dependency. Other key concepts of family therapy is the whole system is more than the sum of its parts. Parts of a system are interconnected. Certain rules determine the functioning of a family system. Systems are dynamic, carefully balancing continuity against change. Individual therapy can provide a concentrated focus to help people become more fully themselves. Family therapy also believes the dominant forces in our lives are located externally in the family. Family therapy is directed toward changing the organization of the family. So here are some perspectives. The Bowen perspective is comprehensive views of human behavior and human problems. Unresolved issues with our original families is the most important. Centered around two counterbalancing life forces, togetherness and individuality, differentiation, balanced thinking, and feeling. We're going to be looking at several different perspectives, but one of the things that I know of as a family therapist is that there's a lot of perspectives in regards to family therapy, but one of the things that I always remind people, especially upcoming therapists or chemical dependency counselors, is that it's always important to look at the different perspectives of family therapy and use the one that culturally fits the family. So I go back and forth with different perspectives, but one of the things that I've been doing therapy for the last 8-9 years, and one of the things that I talk about in regards to family is also with Native families is connecting with culture and spirituality. So I sort of still look at the Western way of thinking, but I've taken a step further away from the Western way of thinking and using culture and spirituality, working with Native people and families. Exponential perspective, designed to change families by changing family members. Families are treated as groups of individuals more than as systems. Enhanced sensitivity and expanded awareness are the essential aims of treatment. Focus on interpersonal change and a commitment to growth as opposed to problem solving. Structural family therapy is a way of looking at families. The techniques is reframing, punctuation, unbalancing, restructuring, enactment, boundary formation, working with spontaneous interaction, intensity, shaping competence. The strategic perspective is derived from the combination of Erickson hypnotherapy and Basonian cybernetics. Developed a body of powerful procedures. They vary in the specifics of theory and technique. Get some water. Cognitive behavioral perspective. Counselor is seen as a teacher. Substitute positive controls. Family systems are treated as learned responses, involuntarily acquired and reinforced. Focus on subsystems considered central to the targeted behaviors. Now, one of the things that I know of, I don't know, but there's a lot of studies out there that are done on in regards to cognitive behavioral therapy. And one of the things that I have come across in a lot of the studies is that this is one of the theories that works really well with Native people, individual, in regards to individual therapy. And I've often used this type of therapy with individuals and have known it's true that it's a positive theory that's very useful in the Native community. Here's some current perspectives. Solutions-focused perspective, pragmatic minimalism, cognitive emphasis, and easily teachable techniques. It de-emphasizes on history and underlying pathology. Clients concentrate on solution rather than on problem. They have little to say about how problems arise. They prefer to focus on the future. Prominent contributors are as follows: Milton H. Erickson, Jay Haley, Chloe Medanis, Tom Anderson, and Michael White. Narrative perspective, personal narrative and social construction, narrative truth versus historical truth. Incompatible systems thinking has distanced itself from the concept and methods of traditional family therapy and techniques. Now, I love narrative therapy, especially working. This is another positive theory that works well with Native people. Now, one of the things that I know from my own experience with working within a Native community is often Native people aren't the type to sit back and forth and do face-to-face conversation. So one of the things that I do both when I was working for organizations plus tribes and then within my own private practice, one of the things that I do and allow when working with the Native population is being able to have them do things with their hands, like possibly doing some beading or coloring or sewing, because what seems to happen is that when they're doing something that helps with better conversation, it builds trust, it's creating safety, a trusting relationship with both myself and the client. Because, you know, for Native people, it's very difficult to sit down and just talk back and forth. It just doesn't work that way. So, and I'm not telling anyone to do or do therapy in this way, but this is what I know. This works for me, and this has worked for the people that I've worked with, even within families. Even doing things during family therapy. I just recently traveled to a home. One of the things that I think is really important as a family therapist too is that it's often good for me to go to the homes and sit with the family within their own environment because, again, they feel safe, they feel comfortable. It helps with building and trusting, creating the relationship. So these are some of the things that I found out from doing family therapy. Functional perspective, concerned with the function that family behavior is designed to achieve, assumes that most family behaviors are an attempt to become more or less intimate, set up contingency management programs to help them to get the kind of intimacy they want more directly, blend strategic and behavioral therapies. So the family disease perspective. It encourages people to fight problems with medication, support groups, education, rather than to explore the network of relationships which their problems were embedded. The multi-system and multi-dimensional perspectives resulted out of research with difficult adolescents. It's a combination of techniques, actively considering and intervening into the extrafamilial systems in which families are embedded, Here are some cultural considerations. What is the definition of family of origin? The birth or biological family and or family system, instrumental or significant in a client's early development. Here are some cultural considerations. Increased immigration and contact with the global media exposed cultures. Is our own worldview healthy? That's a question to ask yourself. Differences aren't necessarily problematic. There's overemphasis on ethnicity can lead counselors to exaggerate the difference between themselves and their clients. Ethnicity is a powerful meaning generator. Race and ethnicity. So we're going to go, now we're going to begin to start to talk about American Indians and sexual orientation. So here is a model. The Native American family is based on Dakota, Lakota, Nakota traditions. Now, if you look at it, we always start with our grandparents and then our uncles, our mother. So the blue side is South, if South is male, and the red side is the females. If the South is female, excuse me. So now, with the community, the Native American community, we're very family orientated. So often you will find families who live with both the grandparents, the parents. Often, sometimes families will also have aunts and uncles that are part of the family. So often, sometimes you have up to 10 to 12 people living in one household. So that tells you how connected the family is. Here are the 7 values of the Dakota, Lakota, Nakota life to help the people. My community is the Sissetawan community, if you can look on the right hand. But these are our 7 districts. Excuse me. So we're going to talk a little bit about the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender family networks. The LGBT people may create a replacement, which means family networks that are made up of individuals who are significant to them, including friends, partners, families of partners, ex-lovers, blood relatives, individuals who have died or are no longer an immediate part of the client's life because of addiction, HIV, AIDS, and relationship, breakup, and other events, and other life events. Now, so my experience also, my expertise is working within the Two-Spirit Native LGBTQ community as well as the mainstream LGBTQ community. So one of the things that I know of and have seen is that a lot of the individuals who come from these communities are not connected with their families due to their identity. A lot of Native American individuals who identify as Two-Spirit or Native LGBTQ community often come from tribal communities that have ostracized them, bullied them, shunned them, and so a lot of the individuals who come from tribal communities often migrate to the bigger city where they know that there's a bigger community who supports them, who encourages them. So that's something to think about. Here's the stages of family change. The stages of family change means attainment of sobriety, adjustment to sobriety, and long-term maintenance of sobriety. Family dynamics, previously referred to as codependency. Other words could be dysfunctional families. Verb often referred to as enabling. Control others as they believe they are incapable incapable of taking care of themselves, have low self-esteem and a tendency to deny their own feelings, and excessively compliant. So one of the things that I have really seen and worked with families in a therapeutic way is helping families to understand what it means to be codependency or codependent. I've seen a lot of individuals in families who often struggle with this. But one of the things that I also know of too is that, especially working with older elders who may be trying to deal with issues in regards to historical and intergenerational trauma, often, well, let me tell a story of a woman from the Pine Ridge Reservation that I worked with. One of the things that she said to me when we did therapy together, or when she first came to see me, and I met her, and we talked and stuff, and one of the things she said to me was, Lenny, she said, please do not diagnose me. I come here wanting you just to listen to me. So one of the things that I've seen in the struggle with her relationship with her family members and her own children was that she was very codependent. So I had to sort of think about how could I describe this word to her without thinking in a clinical way or using those clinical terms. And so I found a way to talk with her to help understand her own behaviors in regards to of codependency. And so what I'm saying is that when you work with Native people, often you will come to experience or see that a lot of the Native people do not like those clinical terms that we use. So it's learning how to use those words in a way that fits that individual. But what I know of, and one of the things that I talk about is that this is one of the things that our community struggles with and suffers with, is being codependent. Often, I can't get better if this person doesn't get better, or I can't make this choice if this person is not included, even if it's an unhealthy choice or a healthy choice, back and forth. So, but I just wanted to give a concept and meaning of the struggle and challenge with codependency in Native families. Continued with family dynamics. Often react in an oversensitive manner, hypervigilance and lower tolerance for stress, remain loyal to people who do nothing to deserve their loyalty, feel less able or powerless to influence the family dynamics, and domestic violence. So when you get the opportunity, I'm sure that this webinar will be shared, or this link would be shared. Please go and take a look at this this TED Radio Hour story. Clients live with partner and minor children. Clients that live with partner and minor children. Similar to maltreatment, victims, children believe the abuse is their fault. Children feel guilty and reasonable for their parents' drinking problem. Trust and intimacy are key child development issues. Now, this is one of the things I know we're beginning to really, or it has been, where we've been really beginning to talk about the development of individuals and families, and even Native families. So we have a hard time in regards to really sort of understanding that development and how we're impacted by it. But one of the things that there's a concept that I really truly believe in when working with Native communities, and even within my own self and even within my own community. But one of the things that I like to talk about is healing the child within. I believe maybe some of you have heard of that concept. I'm just so impressed with, this was one of the concepts that helped me to heal individually within my own family. But it's a book, I don't know if you are familiar with this book, but it's called Healing the Child Within by Charles L. Whitfield. Amazing book. It's the discovery and Discovery and Recovery for Adult Children of Dysfunctional Families. Amazing book. So I would recommend anyone who's interested in that to take a look at that book. Now, when I talk about healing the child within, you know, one of the things that I know of in our Native families is that the only way that we can sort of resolve our issues is in regards, especially coming from two dysfunctional people. So when I work with families and getting them to understand about conflicts and how we deal with our anger, we have a very difficult time talking about our feelings. And so the only way sometimes that we are able to resolve our feelings is through anger. So when I work with Native families or even work with a couple or an individual, I will say to them, okay, so sometimes we know that our families, an individual comes from a family where, especially where there's alcohol, a lot of dysfunction, and often children are often taking care of their grandparents, their parents, older or younger siblings, and so often a child never has the opportunity to be a child. And so when we grow up and we don't get that opportunity, the only way that we know how to resolve issues is by arguing, yelling, screaming, and it's very childlike behavior. So when I work with individuals who are trying to heal their childhood trauma, that is one of the things that I explain to them. One of the things that I also do in therapy, so I'm just giving you some ideas of what I do in therapy, and one of the things that I also enjoy doing is being able to ask the individual. I worked with a woman who was 56 years old who suffered from a lot of issues from domestic violence, child violence, adult violence. So one of the things that I had asked her, well, let me take a step back. One of the things that she had told me was that she had a lot of resentment towards her parents because her parents didn't protect her as a child. And so one of the things that I asked her, I said, is, if you can be a child right now, what would you like to do? And I was quite amazed because she just, for one thing, she's never had a person ask her that question. And so when she looked at me, she said, if I was a child right now, she said, I would like to paint or I'd like to color. And so at the next session, what I did was I was able to gather the stuff that she needed in order to do what she wanted to do as a child. The whole energy in the room, the whole dynamic of the therapeutic process changed, where she was able to even tell me more about her trauma. And basically, it also allowed me to ask her, so what would you like me to do for you? Because often sometimes when we make assumptions about our clients and we make these assumptions, they're not always right. So it's always important to ask your client what they need or what they want. Because for me, when I say, because I believe when we don't give them that opportunity, we also take their own power away from healing. So it's really, so this is my own concept, and this is my own belief in regards to doing therapy. Clients' lives with partner and minor children continued at increased risk for mood and anxiety disorders, increased rates of divorce, violence, and the need for control in relationships, and some children develop resiliency and adaptability. Very true. So adolescents who live with the family of origin, often there's violent behavior, delinquency, psychiatric disorders, risky sexual behavior, impulsivity, neurological impairment, and developmental impairment. The effects of substance abuse and family structures. The client lives with a partner. The client lives with partner and minor children. The client is part of a blended family. The older client with adult children, adolescent client and family of origin. Counselor involvement. So there are 4 levels of counselor involvement with families. Level 1, minimal emphasis on family. Level 2, information and advice. Level 3 is feelings and support. Level 4, brief focus intervention. The 7 C's. So these are character features, cultural and ethnic factors, contract features, commitment, caring, communication, and conflict resolution. Now, one of the things that I really want to stress to the participants of this webinar is that it's always important to remember to ask each family what tribal community they come from. Yes, we are all Native American people, but we have similarities and we have some different ways of thinking that we think in our culture, each of our tribal communities. So it's really important to ask where the individual comes from, and educate yourself about that community. So, example, a Dakota Sioux will think differently than a person who may identify as a Ojibwe. So there's some differences in how we do things within our community, how our views are different. So that's what I mean. It's very important to ask questions when working with Native people and Native families, is to ask where they come from. Now, some are connected to culture and spirituality, some aren't. So just think of those things. It's really important to think about that. We cannot, and that's what we talk about when we say cultural competency, is to know where each individual, which tribe they come from, and ask those questions. It's okay to ask those questions. The 7 C's, so broken down, is character features. Character equals characteristics of a person that tend to be persistent and play a major role in defining that person. Cultural and ethnic factors. Variables that form the context in which individuals and couples exist, surrounding cultural forces, shapes, and relationships. Contract features, a set of implicit or explicit expectations that partners have concerning how they will define their relationship and relate with one another. An effective contract is explicit, attainable, mutually agreed upon, beneficial to both partners. So with working with partners, I've had the opportunity to work both in a Native setting, working with a Native couple, as well as working with a couple who identifies as LGBTQ or Two-Spirit. There's similarities, but often there is ways that the thoughts are thought differently, behaviors are different. So it's really important to remember that and not emphasize that they're both the same, they're both different. With working with Native couples, what I have also discovered is that someone who may be, I don't like comparing, but it happens. When you work with somebody who is highly functional versus dysfunctional, sometimes we can get away with doing talk therapy when doing couples therapy, but what I've also discovered too is doing activities with the couple. So, you know, there's no limit to what you can do in couples therapy. You just discover. I do. I always say that I'm still evolving as a therapist, even though I have quite a number of years doing therapy. But I'm always finding different ways of doing therapy because we often don't want to lose our client with not keeping them engaged. I'm very talkative, but of course I ask permission with the people I'm working with. One of the things that I know of and have heard from individuals, including families and individuals who have done some therapy with someone who doesn't identify as Native, Native people often struggle with individuals who just sit there and are quiet. That's very uncomfortable for someone who identifies as a Native person. So one of the things I always say to people, one of the first questions you can ask a Native person when working with a Native person is, where do you come from? And often, sometimes that will break down some barriers, other times it doesn't, because that question, that type of question is very important in my culture. I do that with other Native people. Where are you from? Who are your relatives? Those are really, really healthy and positive questions to ask an individual. Like I said, it breaks down some barriers. Commitment. Pledge devoted or obligated oneself, being involved with, remaining loyal to, and maintaining a relationship over time. Two types, stability and quality. Caring, a person's ability to express behaviors that promote emotional and physical intimacy, expressed through affection and sexual intimacy, mutually pleasing activities, quality time together, enjoying a supportive and understanding friendship. Communication, positive daily communication equals relationship success. Negative communications are characterized by expressions of negative feelings, anger, shame, thus the message is not heard by the listener. Conflict resolution, personal skills and interpersonal interaction patterns that promote effective decision-making, solve. S is for stop, slow down, and see the problem. O is outline options. L is look at consequences of options. V is vote, and E is evaluate. The 7 C's, here's a summary. Taking the time to think through personal and relationship areas helps identify strengths and build upon and goals to strive for. Socially compatible personal values and healthy personality, love and affection, emotional support and balance, loyalty to the partnership with a long-term perspective accompanied by the will to work out problems, open and effective communication, strong family traditions and competent cultural and ethnic backgrounds, material contract that is flexible and a match between expectations and experiences, the use of healthy and effective problem solving, anger management, and conflict resolution tools. So with that, one of the things that I like to also let people know that there's this amazing book out there called Healing the Soul Wound by Dr. Eduardo Duran. Even today, I still use that book. I remember going to school and getting connected with that book, but I call that book my Bible because it has really taught me a lot about working within community, working individually with Native people, and also doing family therapy, couples therapy. So I would really recommend that book, Healing the Soul Wound by Dr. Eduardo Duran. It really breaks it down and discusses, the impact of historical and intergenerational trauma. So I would definitely say that would be a book to get connected with when working with Native people. Current perspectives, a provider's introduction to substance abuse for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender individuals. The first edition is currently being written. It is increased familiarity with issues and barriers faced by lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender persons in need of substance use disorder related services. Knowledge about the interaction between LGBT issues and substance use and abuse, enhanced ability to offer a sensitive, affirmative, culturally relevant, and effective treatment to LGBT clients in substance use disorders treatment. Now, one of the things I know of is that a lot of the community that comes, or a lot of the individuals who come from this community really suffer with high percentage of alcohol issues, drug issues. Now, also, you have to think about the other issues that are impacting this community. One of the things that we're really starting to talk about and address, especially within the Two-Spirit Native LGBTQ community, is sex trafficking and human trafficking, especially of our youth. We know it's happening. One of my frustrations in regards to when we talk about the Native perspective is that there's not a lot of data out there in regards to what's happening in the Two-Spirit Native LGBTQ community, and so we're interwoven with the national data, which frustrates me because many times I've been to conferences and have asked that question, how much of this data is Two-Spirit or Native LGBTQ data? A lot of times they're unable to answer that question because they never kept track of it. So that's my frustration when it comes to data. So I get really, because we know that this happens within our community, the sex and human trafficking, which is becoming a huge, huge issue and problem within the Native population. So, so we need to do more work. There's a lot of good work that's being done. I will say that, but we just need to continue to keep doing work. Here's a historical perspective on homosexuality and bisexuality. In the 1940s and 50s, same-sex sexual attraction and behavior was considered a mental disorder. In 1957, Dr. Evelyn Hooker's landmark study finds gays and lesbians normal. In 1973, the American Psychiatric Association removes homosexuality as a psychopathology from the DSM. So here's the terminology of the LGBTQ, Two-Spirit, and allies. So L is for lesbian, G is for gay, B is for bisexual, T is for transgender, Q is for questioning, Q is for queer, I is for intersex, 2S is Two-Spirit, A is for allies. Now, one of the things I know of is that I do identify as a Two-Spirit Dakota male. One of the things that I'm finding out was working with both adults and young people who identify that are Native. The young people are accepting more of the term queer. Rather, I as an adult, I don't like that word. I cringe when I hear it because growing up in a tribal community, when people would call me that, it was a derogatory term. And so I like that the young people are embracing that term queer versus, someone like me who still struggles with hearing that term. But anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there to give you a little bit of education. So the terms, categories, and descriptors, both, sex, male and female. Sexual orientation is lesbian, gay, bisexual, heterosexual, and queer. Gender role is male, female, masculine, and feminine. Gender identity refers to transgender, transsexual, male, female, queer, and intersex. So the Kinsey scale. So what this means is that it's like rating, I just kind of chuckle about this, but so I would be considered number 6, exclusively homosexual. Now, we know there was studies that were done in regards to either, people still sort of believe that, one day you just instantly turn gay. That's not true. We are born gay, and we still have a lot of struggles and challenges with a lot of these issues, but I don't want to go too much into it, but I just kind of wanted to give you an idea. So on this Kinsey scale, I would truly identify as number 6. And we do have bisexual individuals. Often some people believe that people who identify as bisexual are the ones who are struggling with their identity, and that's not true, or they're confused. There's just so much to discuss, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time discussing these issues, but I just wanted to throw that also out there. The coming out process. The term coming out refers to the experiences of lesbians and gay men as they work through and accept a stigmatized identity, transforming a negative self-identity into a positive one. The CAS model, stage 1, identity confusion, stage 2, identity comparison, stage 3, identity tolerance, stage 4, identity acceptance, stage 5, identity pride, stage 6, identity synthesis. And now we're going to talk about Nielsen's three-phase model for recovery from shame. Phase one is breaking the silence parallels to the process of coming out. It is important for LGBT individuals to tell their stories and to address the pain of being different in a heterosexist society. So here would be the counselor's task. Facilitate client discussion of hiding LGBT feelings from others. Explore emotional costs in hiding, denying one's sexuality. Discuss how the client has tried to fit in and at what cost. Examine negative feelings of self-blame, feeling bad or sick, and the effect of shaming messages on clients. Foster clients' ability to be out. So one of the things that I like to talk about is that, only focus on the individual's orientation is only focus on the orientation if the client wants that. Now, I have heard, and plus my own personal experience, is that often therapists or anybody that's in that field will often focus on the sexual identity rather than the trauma that the person has experienced. So when working with this population, it's always important to ask that question, and with any population, matter of fact, is asking, what do you want to work on? What do you want to talk about? Because often, sometimes if we focus too much on that sexual identity, we never get the opportunity to really truly work on what is causing that individual to suffer. So I'm going to say it again, it's important to ask the question, what do you want to work on? So phase two, establishing perpetrator responsibility allows clients to understand their struggle in the context of societal discrimination and prejudice. The counselor's task is to facilitate focusing and managing anger constructively, not destructively. Help client understand and accept negative self-image as social, cultural, not personal. Counteract clients' experience of heterosexism and homophobia by role-making and by providing a treatment environment that is empowering for the LGBT person, not stigmatizing. Well, like I said earlier, I mean, you know a little bit of my my work experience and my expertise, but one of the things that I know of with, as I said earlier, a lot of Native individuals who identify, who come from tribal community, often struggle with their identity as a Native person and as a Two-Spirit person. I've had the opportunity to have been a facilitator, co-facilitator of a Two-Spirit support group that we created here in Minneapolis in working with specifically Two-Spirit people. Now, I'm one of those persons that, I've been doing this for a while and sort of gotten away from, how should I say it, society's way of telling me how to work with individuals. What I know of is that often what happens within a Native community is that often we are told what we need. One of the things that I have discovered with working with Two-Spirit Native LGBTQ people is that it's very important to ask what the individual wants. So when we created this focus group or this support group, what we did was we put a survey out and we asked the Two-Spirit community, Native LGBT community, what they wanted. I felt that it was important to ask, do a survey. And, as a mental health therapist, I sort of made the assumption that the percentage of wanting mental health services would be much more higher than anything. But long and behold, we had 78 respondents to the survey. 51% of the individuals asked for culture and spirituality, what they wanted to focus on in this support group. 28% of the individuals had discussed mental health. So I was quite impressed with those numbers. And so what we did as part of this focus group is that we integrated culture and spirituality along with healing. We didn't spend a lot of time using those mental health terms or whatever, but we used a lot of healing through activities. We took individuals down to Fort Snelling here in Minneapolis, which, you know, to go down and pick red willow. We connected them with the Sweat Lodge. We connected them with also 2 individuals in the community who practice a culture. We had both a male and a female perspective because I felt that was important, because I didn't want it to be a male dominating experience, but to bring balance. So that was a great experience doing that work. Reclaiming personal power involves improving self-concept, self-esteem, and self-confidence. So the counselor's task is to facilitate client self-concept and self-efficiency, identify and change negative messages to affirmations, recognize and release residual shame, develop a positive affirming spirituality, integrate public and private identities, build and support network, connect community. You know, this community suffers a lot with a lot of shame. And I've seen a lot of individuals suffer with a lot of self-esteem issues, and so it's really difficult. It takes time. It's something that can't just be done overnight. But also, one of the things that I've discovered both working in the Two-Spirit LGBTQ community as well as the Native community is teaching individuals how to do affirmations. It takes time. It's not something that's, you know, learned quite easily, because when you come from a family that's dysfunctional, and when you don't get that positive remarks or comments or whatever, however we describe it, you know, it's hard to grasp that stuff. So it takes a lot of time. So I'm going to be very honest about that when working with both Native community as well as this community. Taking a family history, all clients, ask these questions. What were the rules of the family system? Was there a history of physical, emotional, spiritual, or sexual trauma? Were all family members expected to behave or evolve in a certain way? What were the family expectations in regard to careers, relationships, appearances, statuses, or environment? In general, was sex ever discussed? Now, when I grew up with my family, we never talked about sex, you know, and as a therapist or a counselor, it's always important to remember not to be uncomfortable with asking those questions. It's really important that we ask those questions, because when we don't get the history of maybe some sexual abuse, then we don't understand the whole person, because sexual violence does impact the individual. We know that. But if we're uncomfortable with asking those questions, you know, we need to learn how to be comfortable with asking those questions. And I'll be honest, I mean, I was fresh out of school, I was in school too, and found it difficult to ask those questions. But it takes practice. So don't feel like you have to do everything all at once. Because I always remind people too, I mean, we're not handed a manual on how to be the perfect therapist or counselor, or we all do things differently. We don't always do things the same, but we're all on the right page of wanting to help individuals heal. So remember that. Because when I was fresh out of school, I wanted to be the best therapist that I possibly can be. I wanted to learn all theories, you know, but you learn as you go. For me, that's how it is. LGBT claims. Was anyone else in the family acknowledged to be or suspected of being a lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender individual? Remember, if one identifies, often sometimes there's another individual in the family who will also identify. Example, for me, my first cousin, who was 7 years older than me, also identified as being gay. So it's common. So in my family, I can say this, that below me, I have 2 nieces who identify as lesbian. So So it is within the family. How did the family respond to other individuals coming out or being identified as LGBT individuals? Is the client out to his or her family? If the client is out, what type of response did he or she receive? So, it's really, really important to educate yourself in regards to issues that impact the LGBTQ Two-Spirit Native LGBTQ community. You know, because there is a lot of issues that really impacts the community, and the community really suffers. But I'm also reminded too, because I have colleagues that I work with across the country who identify as Two-Spirit or Native LGBTQ, always remind me that we have good things that also happen in our community. It's not always bad. So I'm reminded of that. So I always have to remind myself of that. Guidelines for working with LGBT families. Demonstrate support and understanding for the life partners and significant others. Be sensitive to the individual self-identification. Be sensitive to the diversity and variety of relationships in the LGBTQ community. Demonstrate support and understanding for the life partners and significant others. Be sensitive to the individual self-identification. Be sensitive to the diversity and variety of relationships in the LGBT community. When working with Native individuals who identify, or anybody, within the LGBTQ community, it's really important to remember what it means to out that individual. Now, a lot of communities and families really struggle with that, where they think it's okay to talk with an individual about this person who may identify without asking permission. So I really stress when I do this work is that it's important to ask the individual if it's okay to talk about their identity. We don't realize how impacting that is on an individual and even a couple, because we have a lot of Native community, and within Native community who, individuals who struggle with being accepted in their community, so they may appear like they're a couple, but they're very secretive about it, and sometimes when an individual who within this couple may identify to another individual that they are a couple, and this person may out them in a public arena or whatever, that's not good. That's not healthy. It really hurts a person. So I'm just saying, be really think about what it feels like to be outed. So I'm just throwing some stuff in there in regards to working with this community. Educate, bring awareness. It's really important. So I'm going to go over some myths and facts about the LGBT parents. Myth: lesbians and gay men do not have children. Fact: the American Bar Association estimates that at least 6 to 10 million daughters and sons of lesbian, gay, and bisexual sexual parents in the United States. Here's a couple more myths. Children raised by LGBT parents are likely to turn out to be LGBT themselves. Fact: published studies have established that children raised by gay or lesbian parents are no more likely to grow up gay or lesbian than other children. Myths: children who are in contact with gay men or lesbians face increased risk of being sexually abused. Fact: statistics indicate that 90% of all children who are sexual abuse cases involve a heterosexual male perpetrator. Another myth: gay men and lesbians have unstable relationships that make them inadequate parents. Fact: a large number of gay men and lesbians can and do enjoy stable and satisfying relationships. Matter of fact, I have a lot of amazing friends here in the cities who identify as either Two-Spirit or Native LGBTQ or even LGBTQ who are parents of children. It's just amazing. It's amazing to see them raise these children. But often sometimes too, there's a huge struggle here with Two-Spirit families coming out in public because of being ostracized, and I really encourage these families to come out because they need to be made visible. So just think of a lot of the struggles and challenges that this community faces. Here's some more myths and facts about LGBT parents. The only acceptable home for a child contains a mother and father who are married to each other. Fact. The reality of today is that the traditional definition of the married heterosexual couple with 1 to 5 children is only one of many types of families that children grow and thrive in. Myth. Children raised by a gay or lesbian couple will not have proper male and female role models. Fact. Research suggests that children of LGBT parents are exposed to more people of the opposite sex than many children of straight parents, and even when children are not. There is no evidence to suggest that they are harmed. You know, one of the things, I don't know if a lot of you understand this type of therapy that has been used on individuals who identify where they use the Bible on the individual. My hope is that, you know, this type of therapy is banned across the country. I know that I had a couple colleagues of mine who have approached me in actually going to legislators and bringing light to this ugly type of therapy that's being used on individuals. But it's another good, there's so many good books out there, but I'm such a huge reader. I'm always educating myself. I'm always reading. But here's another book that that I would recommend individuals if you want to know the one of the issues that really impacts individuals who identify, and it's called conversion therapy. I'm sure you've heard of it, but this is a really good book. It's called Boy Erased by Gerard Conley, Garrard Conley. I read this book and it was just, I wanted to educate myself about conversion therapy and the impact that it has on an individual who identifies as LGBTQ. Very horrific. It talks about an individual in that book who went to this, his family had forced him to do this type of therapy, and this individual tried to commit suicide 8 times. But anyway, it's a really good book, so I would recommend another good book. Individual and organizational mission. Because LGBT communities are underserved and often invisible, it is important that treatment providers make a commitment to serving this population and incorporate the commitment into the organization's mission statement, philosophy, and service literature. Examine all aspects of a program for overt and covert expressions and perception of heterosexual biases. Make a commitment at every level of the program, from the board of directors to the direct line staff, to design and deliver services in a manner that's sensitive to the needs of LGBT individuals. So here's the presentation summary. So we talked about history and we talked about concepts, current models, cultural considerations, codependency, the effects of substance abuse on family systems. We talked about the families, African American, Hispanic, Latino, Native American, DNL, and LGBT. So we are at the end of the presentation. I hope that I was helpful. We do have a few minutes for any questions if anybody has any.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Lenny. And if people hadn't noticed, I was trying to put up links to the books that Lenny was mentioning in the chat pod. So if you were trying to find which those books are, that we've listed those there. Hopefully I didn't miss any. And yes, if you have questions, please feel free to submit them to the Q&A pod or the chat. The field where you type them in is right at the bottom of those. And then while we're waiting to see if questions come in, I'll just remind everyone that we will have a short survey at the end of the presentation. It should open up in your browser's window, but if it doesn't, we also will send a link to you in our follow-up email, which should be coming out within the next couple of days. And that'll also include a link to the recording of today's webinar and the handouts of the presentation. So if you would like to view the presentation again or pass it on to colleagues, we would greatly appreciate that and hope that's helpful to you. And I don't see any questions in right now, but we always welcome your questions if anything comes up later that you would like to pass on to us, or we can pass them on to Lenny as well. Please don't hesitate to email me. My email address is under the contact and support, kate-trams@uiowa.edu. And yeah, with that, I'll thank everyone for joining us. And Lenny, did you have anything you'd like to say before we finish up here?
No, I just want to encourage, if you have any questions or concerns, please do not hesitate to email me. I don't have an issue of returning emails, so please, if you have any questions and don't want to ask them here, you can always email me.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Lenny, for your insight and your experience and sharing that with us. And thank you to everyone for joining us today. And with that, we'll close out and hope you all have a great day.